talking about what makes you successful in life, relationships, and business. It's Jump, Pivot, and Roll with Shannon Stiles and Rachel Murphy.
Open your own business and build a career that you love, giving you more time to spend with your family? You know what I'm talking about. Think of those daydreams you have while at work, or maybe when you're standing around the water cooler, what you're talking to your friends about. What's stopping you? Well, if you're like most of us, there may be a few things stopping you. Maybe it's not knowing what your expertise is, or maybe you don't know where your passion lies. It could be the fear of actually taking the leap of faith. No matter what it is, I'm sure that as we speak to our next guest, you are sure to find something in common with her. Today, we're wrapping up the series of Where to Start Your Journey. And our guest today found herself asking similar questions back in 2015. She's a wife, a mother of a 20-year-old daughter, and her two sons are ages 14 and 11, which you wouldn't be able to tell just by looking at her. Please welcome our friend, Sencery Clemente. She's the owner of Tailor Made Virtual Design. Sencery, thank you so much for joining us today. How are you?
Welcome.
Hi. Thank you. I'm good.
Excellent. Well, I'm really excited to have you on. Rachel and I heard your story a few weeks ago, and we just loved how you found your passion. So in 2015, you knew you wanted to become an entrepreneur. Did you know what industry you wanted to go into when you first started this journey?
I did not know. At the time, I was a middle school science teacher, and I had done that for about 16, 17 years at that point. And, you know, I just found myself with a lot of student loan debt and just regular debt.
Yeah.
And I thought, this teacher's salary is not cutting it, even after all those years. So I knew I wanted more for my family. I knew I wanted more for our lives, and that I had something inside of me that said, you know, well, you could do something on the side. You could start a side business with the internet. You can do anything. There's all these people who run businesses just online. So I had no idea what my business was going to be, but I knew I wanted to have one online because everything was so accessible. I just had no clue what I was going to do at that point.
So you had the itch, right? You wanted to be a business owner, but weren't really sure which direction you were going to go. So when you had the idea to move forward with Tailor Made Virtual Design, did you feel like you were qualified to do the job?
No. No. I think that's something that everybody battles. And from what I'm experiencing 5 years later and talking to other entrepreneurs now that I have a lot of friends in that online space, you never quite get over that whole feeling of, I don't know if I'm qualified. But the thing is, everybody is good at something.
Absolutely.
And you have to find what that is. My passion is teaching. I love to teach. It doesn't even matter what it is. I just love to teach, and I love to watch people make progress because they are doing something they never thought that they could do. And so I knew I wanted to do something that would incorporate like all the skills I already had as a teacher, and that I had picked up over the years. And I knew I could type really fast. I was really good at typing. And I thought, well, let me try to find something that I can type because I enjoy typing. And I actually started my business. It wasn't Tailor Made Virtual Design. It was Tailor Made Virtual Support. And I took a transcription boot camp, a general transcription boot camp course from a lady who helps virtual assistants to start their businesses because she started that way. Excuse me. And so I took that course and I thought, well, I can do transcription on the side for people because I love to type and it'll be helping people who need it. So that's how I started. And I started my virtual assistant business with that name. And one of the other things I would tell people is don't get caught up in trying to figure out. My name of my business changed as I found out after building my first website, which is took me a year. And I mean, gosh, y'all, the YouTube videos and the Facebook groups, just trying to figure that out was ridiculous.
I love that, though, that you went ahead and knew what you wanted to do. And so you started finding resources that were going to teach you how to do it.
Right. And I just fought through it. Because the thing about having the idea, it's really exciting to get started, but you're going to have the ups and the downs. It's not a straight line up. Right.
Right. Absolutely.
So you're going to have hills and valleys. And, things are going to change. And I ended up going from transcription into designing websites when people saw that I did mine. So that's when I turned into Tailor Made Virtual Design.
And that was that was out of necessity, correct?
Yes.
You had to teach yourself.
To have a website for my business. When I was talking to the lady who taught me about VA stuff, and she's like, you got to have a website for your business, Sencery. And I thought, no, because I had actually tried that a couple of years before. Because when I first thought about making money online, I found this course when I was doing the online searching, and it talked about building a website to sell affiliate products online. And I thought, maybe I could try that. It's a whole course, 8 weeks, everything you need to know to build the website, sell the product. And so I started this course, and, the guy, we had these online course coaching calls where he was going to answer all the questions. And we get in there, and he's talking, and it's like, wah, 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 wah. And I was like, man, it's a Charlie Brown cartoon because I see your mouth moving, but I cannot understand what you're saying. And I told everybody, I said, he's speaking in Tech-inese. I don't understand that.
I love that word.
Right? But that's what it is. It's like a whole foreign language when you're trying to learn something.
Right.
Techie, and they're talking and all that geeky stuff. It's like, I don't know what that means. And if I'd ask questions, they'd be like, well, just watch the tutorials. It's easy. I'm like, no, I already did. That's why we're on a Q&A call.
Right.
I don't understand.
And I like how you point that out, Sencery, in the fact that, not everybody starts at the same place on that path. Some people, that techie stuff is great, and they know exactly what they're doing, and you speak all that language, and they're like, yes, yes, yes. And then sounds like people like you and me are going, I don't even know what you just said. Like, I lost you at
Right.
So I love that you get that, and that you cater to helping people understand that in their language, and
yes.
I think that's so important in the journey, is that we can realize that we're all at different levels, but there is a way to go and find that information. There are resources.
There is. And like Brian Dixon has this quote that he says all the time, and I think a lot of times people forget. And he says, what's easy and normal for you is magic to somebody else.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. But it's the truth, because sometimes I think we get so used to doing what we do. It is second nature for us, and we forget what it's like when we started.
Yeah.
And so we can't bring ourselves back to the point of, what was it like when I still remember, which is part of the reason I do the thing that I do. I still remember what it was like and trying to learn the tech. And I would think, like, I got the website done, and then people started talking about an email list. I'm like, what the heck is an email? I don't know what that is.
Right.
They're like, oh, you need an email service provider, and you need a autoresponder series. I'm like, stop. I don't know what that means.
Yes, stop. Time out.
Right. So my whole mission and purpose in my business at this point is to take all that Tech-inese talk and translate it and break it down in a way that people who are just starting their business and have no clue and they're so confused that they can understand it, and give it to them in little bite-sized pieces, one step at a time, and just so they can get started, because a lot of people will give up before they even really get started because they're in this sea of information, and
Right.
it's just overwhelming, and they can't find everything they need in one place.
Right.
And so my whole mission this year, in the next 12 months, is to help 1,000 solopreneurs, or entrepreneurs working on their own.
I love how you make up words, by the way. I am really digging this.
Right.
I am too.
I'm going to start doing my own dictionary like you do.
Yeah, yeah.
I know,
love it.
right?
Yeah,
I
that's
love
awesome.
to make up words to
That is
help
so cool.
them get their businesses started.
That's great.
So, because the tech is a piece that I find out, a lot of people, they're scared and they're non-techie.
Yeah.
That's the word they use. So I have a whole
That's
movement
me. That's
and
me,
a
girl.
group, and I call it Nontechy Nation, and that's my people right there because I get it.
So in the beginning, how supportive were your friends and family?
I have a best friend. You know how you have your bestie, like your ride or die person?
Yeah.
Yes.
So she was all about it. She has always supported me from day one. She actually taught with me, is how we met. So we knew each other for years. My husband has always been extremely supportive. My kids are always supportive of me. My mom and my stepdad are a little bit different because here's the thing. They're in their 70s, right? So when you're trying to explain the online world and you say, I'm going to start a business online, they kind of look at you funny.
Yeah. Yeah.
And some of your friends, they're not in that world, so they don't understand it. And one of the things I've learned is it's good to have a dream, but be careful who you tell your dream to, because some people won't understand it, and in their misunderstanding, they will say things to you that they...
You're cutting out a little bit. So in their misunderstanding, they will say things to you. Are you talking about that negative voice that kind of plants the seed of doubt?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The things like, oh, well, I mean, I guess that'll work.
Exactly.
That's not what I want to hear.
Instead of, you've got this, go for it, right?
I know, right?
Yeah.
Or, well, gee, I don't know how that's going to work. How are you going to do X, Y, Z? And it's like, you know what? I hadn't even got started. Can we not go down the road of all the obstacles I'm going to have?
Can we get past A and B and C before we start talking about X, Y, and Z? Exactly.
Right? I'm like, let's just do A. Can we just do A?
And that's one thing that, I find whenever you're starting a new task, the best way to do it is to look past all of those obstacles and just focus on the end result. Because when you focus on that end result, you get there a lot faster. You might even bypass some of those fears that came up.
Right.
Right.
So,
and I think your end result is like your why.
Yes.
You have to know why you're doing this, and that's what keeps you going.
I agree 100%. So how did you come across your why? Was it because of your own experience and kind of the overwhelm of those techie people kind of talking right past you, and you seen that was a niche that needed to be filled? Or what helped you discover your why? How can your story help our listeners find their why?
My why, it was actually twofold. The first one, yes, was because of my experiences. And it took me a good 3 years to put all of the tech in my business in place, because I had to keep finding out things. And then I had to learn it on my own from all these free sources or different sources. So I know about that overwhelm, and I know the frustration of finally getting one thing done and thinking, yes, I've arrived. And it's like, no, you got to do this, this, and this. It's like, well, how am I going to do that? So my frustration and listening to people who could not explain it to me in a way I understood how it was all supposed to work, that was the first way I found my why, is just personal experience. The second way that really drove me to keep moving forward with what I'm doing now is that when I was building websites for people, I would have some people who heard about me, and they would come and say, I can't afford for you to build my website for me, but could you tell me at least where to start and what to do? Could you teach me how to do this since you learned how to do your own? So I started to teach them, and then I had people who would say, somebody built this website for me. And this is what got me. It's not that they had someone build it for them. It's that they paid someone $1,000 to $5,000 to build them a website, and then the person disappeared.
Right.
Or they
That
don't
happened to
know
me.
how to change it.
Yep.
Yes. They don't know. And they're like, I just need to change a picture, and they want $200 to change the picture, and then I have to wait 4 weeks until they can get to me.
Right. Well, and the hard thing in that is that you were trapped. You've paid all this money like I did, and then you're trapped because you're like, okay, if I go in and change something, am I going to mess something up? And if I mess something up, I mean, it's like having all this great resource and not being able to use it. So I love that.
Right. I call it the solopreneur hostage situation.
That is a great name. You need to write a dictionary, girl.
I know. I'm loving it.
I know. I should have a whole resource of a website just in terms that I made up. But I call it a hostage situation because you are at the mercy of whoever built that for you.
Yeah.
If they don't train you how to use it. And sometimes they'll say, oh, yeah, I'm going to train you how to use it. And they give you an hour-long tutorial that shows you some basics that they fly through, again, because they're used to dealing with that format. You've never seen it before.
Right.
And then they're like, there's your training.
And then they're gone. They're gone. Like my girl disappeared 1.5 years after we built the website. And I've sent messages and emails, and I'm like, I have so many new pictures I would love to put up on my website because my work's just gotten better and better. And it's like, I don't know how. So I love that you've seen that that's really the niche and the audience that you needed to serve. What a beautiful discovery. Because
nobody's serving them. And I see people getting taken advantage of because I've worked with clients that have certain hosting companies, and they are paying huge amounts of money. And I'm like, what do you pay that for? And they're like, I don't know. They said I needed it. I was like, you don't need that. Well, they said I did. I'm like, I know. People are destroyed for lack of knowledge. When you don't know what you don't know, you will pay for things that you don't need to pay for. I'm like, you don't need that.
Oh, you need to say that again, girl.
So
you do not need it.
So I don't know why, but I've been on this kick, and every time we talk to somebody and I have a guest or we have a guest on the podcast, I have these little quotes come to mind that remind me of the guest. And yours is, give a man a fish and you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime.
Absolutely.
We're going to take
that is what I want to do.
We're going to take a quick break. You're listening to Jump, Pivot, and Roll. We'll be back in just a moment after a word from our sponsors.
The Jump, Pivot, and Roll podcast is brought to you in part by the Shannon Styles Allstate Insurance Agency. Just as you take that next step in life, you need to take that next step in protecting yourself, your car, your home, and your family. Reach out to Shannon at 316-773-9864 or shoot her an email at sstyles@allstate.com. Also by Simplify My Life ICT. Is your life cluttered? Do you need help with organization? Rachel Murphy can help. Check out Rachel's services online at simplifymylifeict.com or reach out to Rachel at simplifymylifeict@gmail.com. To keep up with the Jump, Pivot, and Roll podcast, make sure to follow them on their Facebook page. Just go to facebook.com/Jump, Pivot, and Roll. There you can find content, podcasts of the show, discussions with Rachel and Shannon, and more. Plus, make sure to subscribe to the podcast on any of your favorite podcasting sites, from iTunes and Spotify, Google Play to TuneIn, and right on their Podbean site at jumppivotandroll.podbean.com. And for all the exclusive content, make sure to become a VIP member on their Patreon site. Just go to patreon.com/Jump, Pivot, and Roll.
And welcome back to Jump, Pivot, and Roll. You're with Rachel Murphy. I'm Shannon Stiles, and our special guest today is Sencery Clemente. I love your name, by the way. I just love saying that.
Thank you.
It is so pretty. It is. But Sencery's with us, and she's been, if you missed the first half, she was talking to us about her journey and how she started her journey. And right before we went to break, I came out with a quote that just really reminds me of her. And it's give a man a fish and you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. Now that is...
Well, that's your why.
That's
is
a purpose.
It not?
That's a mission, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's my why. Because my thing is this. I want to teach you so that you know how to do it yourself. My goal is that you don't need me for that one thing all the time.
You know,
My goal is you learn how to do it yourself. But here's the thing with any kind of technology, and when you start your online business or when you have a website, it doesn't matter what the technology is. There's always so many different aspects and little tips and tricks and things that you can learn about it because it's
Right.
ongoing.
Yeah.
So my thing is, the other thing I found is that you can't really get the support. Like you could take a course for 8 weeks and you might have coaching with the course. But what happens when the 8 weeks is over?
right.
It's like, well, where'd you go? I have more questions because you're going to keep using the technology. So another big piece of it, besides teaching you how to do that, is having the community along with it and the ongoing support. Because I always got frustrated because I'm like, well, after the course is done, now what am I going to do? I still have questions and I don't have anywhere to ask them.
Right.
It's like, hello. And then you're at hostage situation again.
Well,
Yeah.
I love what you said in that because I think when you truly have a passion and a mission, you don't want to hold people hostage. I mean, my mission is the same thing. As a professional organizer, my clients laugh at me, but I tell them my goal is you never need me again. Like that
Right.
is my goal because I want to get to the next person who needs that help and who needs that breakthrough. And I think that's really the difference between having just a way that you're wanting to make money and having a passion to where you want to change things. And I love that that's where you're at because that makes that why so powerful.
And it becomes
Yeah.
it becomes a movement
It does.
more
Right.
than just a passion or a mission. It becomes a movement because people want to
See,
follow suit.
Right. And my passion is for people to grow. That's why I say I can teach anything.
Right.
I can teach you anything. But my passion is people
There you go.
and their growth and their advancement. It's not a website.
Right.
It's not an email list. It's not, I want to see you grow and progress, whatever it is you're trying to get towards. It just so happens that a lot of times in the online world, tech is the big issue. So if I can help you get through that, I'll help you get through that.
So
and learn from the mistakes I make.
You bring up a really good point because tech is a big issue, and that is a very, very saturated industry. So
Yes.
when you were starting, and you're starting in this saturated industry, which if the listeners didn't pick up on this, you didn't know what you were doing exactly in the
Sure
beginning.
didn't.
I mean, you were doing trial and error, and you were figuring it out as you were going, and you were teaching others as you did it, right? But
Yep, exactly.
so with it being such a saturated industry, was that scary? I mean, it had to add to the fear level, right?
Yes, it's very scary. Even to this day, it's scary. And that's another mindset type of piece that you deal with when you're doing anything that's entrepreneurial that we really don't think about. Because we think about the physical things like the tech or setting up accounts or getting business licenses and stuff like that. But the real battle is in your head.
Right.
Because
Amen.
the whole thing, imposter syndrome is a real thing. It's where you're like, I know I can do this because I've done it before. But what if I try to do it for somebody and it doesn't work? Or what if they say, you don't know what you're doing? Or, all those scenarios run through your head. But the thing is that I've learned over the past 5 years, and especially now, is that no one can do what you do the way you do it.
That's right.
And people, right? People are not attracted to your skill. They're attracted to you as a person.
Right.
So there are people who will love me and be like, oh, Sencery, I want to work with you. It's so awesome. Like, thank you. And then there's people who are going to be like, girl, I do not want to work with you. I can't stand your accent. I can't stand to hear you talk. I got to go find somebody else. And it's okay.
Those aren't your people.
I just want to find, they're not your people, girl. Let me go.
And that's the difference. You don't want them. It's so interesting how people think that they want everybody. And it's like, so to our listeners, we are saying to you flat out, you don't want everybody. You want your people. Because those are the ones you're going to be able to help change their lives.
Yeah, and I love, Sencery, I love how you did it because you did go into this huge industry, right? And, I mean, tech is everywhere. Gosh, you can walk into Best Buy, you can walk into the Geeks R Us. It's everywhere. There are people that are supporting in tech, but you got very specific. Yes. And you said, okay, not am I not only going to do tech, I'm going to make it even a smaller audience, right? I'm going to do tech for people who don't know anything about it. And I'm going to take it a step further, too. I'm going to do tech for people who know nothing about it, but don't have the money to pay somebody to do their website, right? They just need guidance. So I love the way that you did that. Now, is that something that you were taught?
No, I honestly believe it's just my character. I mean, being a teacher and teaching middle school and doing professional development and being in administration, my character, I don't like to see people taken advantage of. I don't like to see them discouraged because in their head they think they can't do something, but I know that they can.
That's beautiful.
Right.
That's beautiful. So what are the questions
think you're capable of?
Yes. So one of the questions I have for you is, and I love to ask this of all of our guests because as Shannon and I like to say from Tony Robbins, success leaves clues, or you know, as Jim Quick, he says it a different way, but basically when people are successful, they are doing some of the same things. So what are some of the things that you did that got you onto the right path and gave you that strength that when you would hit that roadblock or that obstacle, you're like, okay, I'm going to take this bite size, bite by bite, but I'm going to break it down. And this is the way you stuck to that path.
One of the main things is you can't listen to too many people at one time. There's too many voices. You have to find the person that you resonate with. When you hear them and their journey and what they talk about, you're like, yes, that she knows what I'm talking about. That was me. She understands me. You want to follow that person. And you don't want to jump to so many people because when you get too many voices, you get confusion. So you have to find someone you resonate with because somebody may be extremely popular and very good at what they do. But when you watch them or listen to them, if you don't resonate with them or there's something off about it and you're just like, I'm not really feeling that, but they made a lot of money, so they must know what they're doing. People who, they can know what they're doing, but you don't click with them. You have to find the person that understands where you are and that you resonate with and stop trying to find it's shiny object syndrome. Oh, this person has this and this person has that. And oh, let me try it this way. You have to pick one way and one person and you stick with it. And you decide that's going to be the person I'm following. That's going to be my coach. That's going to be the one I take, my advice from.
I think
and you
that's
stick
so
with that
good
person.
Because it's like trying to take a drink from a fire hose. You're just going to get lambasted and you're going to wind up halfway across, the parking lot, and you're not wanting that.
Exactly.
You just want a sip of water. You just want to keep going. So I think that is beautiful advice.
Yeah.
So
you just have to find one person.
out of all of your mentors or your one mentor, what is that one piece of advice that just changed your world?
Actually, both of them, because I have two, and both of them say the same thing. Excuse me. And this has gotten me unstuck. And they would always ask me, Sencery, what's the one next step to take?
That's great.
And it's like the angels would sing. I'm like, what next step? I know what the next step is, because I'm trying to think. You know how we do. We try to think
clouds
17
were
steps
spreading
and
and the sun came out.
Right?
Yeah.
I know, it was glorious. The birds were singing. I felt like Snow White. But, that's what's the one next step. So if you ever find yourself confused, overwhelmed, and you're like, I don't know what to do, just ask yourself, what's the one thing I can do right now? And it may be writing an email. It doesn't have to be some huge project. It may be, I just need to write this email and send it. That's all. That's all I'm going to do right now. That's the next step. And just do it.
That's huge. And I think
it is.
That you're making such a good point, because I know for me, imposter syndrome is a very real thing, and getting frozen in where I want to go and feeling like I can't do it perfect enough. Perfection is something I struggle with all the time. It's one of my demons. And I'm thinking like 10 steps ahead. Like, this is where I want to go. And so I'm concentrating on that, those 10 steps. And I think you make such a valid point that if you take those steps back and you're like, okay, I've made it here. What's the one next step to get me up the mountain? Not 10 steps up the mountain, just one.
Right.
That is such a valid point. And I think you're right that that's absolutely a game changer.
Yes. It's the only reason I'm still doing what I'm doing right now.
And thank God you are, because look at the lives that you're going to change. I mean, a teacher is meant to teach. I don't care what the subject is. If you have a teacher's heart, you're meant to change the world. And it sounds like that's what you're doing.
Thank you. That's the goal.
So I have one last question. And that question would be, if you were able to go back to your younger self and give her one piece of advice, what would that be?
My younger self. Definitely, I would tell her, you need to be who God created you to be.
Beautiful.
And stop trying to be everyone else.
That's
Definitely.
Beautiful. And my last question for you is, I always love to end with, I would love for you to give our listeners a challenge, because, Shannon and I do that, but it's always great to hear from somebody else, because that might be the challenge that they need to move them. So what is one challenge you would give our listeners?
The one challenge, I think, would be to create some time, even if it's just an hour, and take the time, take a notebook and a pen, and go to your favorite spot, whether it's in your house, whether it's at, a coffee shop, wherever it is, and just sit. Don't look at your phone. Don't listen, to music. Just sit and be with yourself and give yourself some creative space so that those dreams and desires that were planted inside of you can have some room and you can hear them. And then write them all down without judging them. Just write them down. Anything that comes to your mind, write it down. Because a lot of times we think of something, we're like, make some creative work, about an hour, and just sit with yourself and write all of the dreams and the desires that come to you in a notebook. And
That's
keep those.
Beautiful, girl.
One last thing. How can our listeners find you?
They can find me at Tailor, Tailor, Made tailormadevirtualdesign.com. I know it. That's my website.
Perfect.
Free stuff I offer there.
And are you on social media as well? Can they find you on Facebook or Instagram?
I am. I'm on Facebook, and I just started Instagram.
Okay.
But I am on Facebook. You can look me up by my name, Sencery Rose Clemente, or you can look up Tailor Made Virtual Design on Facebook as well.
Awesome. And we will be tagging you in the post as well so we can make sure that our listeners can easily find you. Thank you so very much for your time, for your wisdom, for sharing your journey. It has been an absolute pleasure for Shannon and I to have you on and for our listeners to meet you. So thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Good luck to you. We appreciate it. So if you just listen to that, Sencery left us some amazing tips. And just to go over a couple of them, we don't think about the real battle, and that's the one in your head. You've got to control that. You've got to get the right mindset. We all do. She also said you need to be who God made you to be and stop trying to be like everybody else, because you know what? God created each and every one of us to be unique and special, and it's that special, unique gift that we're supposed to share with others.
Like she said, no one can do what you do the way that you do it and the way that it's meant to be done. That is solely yours.
And don't worry. Don't worry about how many people are out there in your industry, because people aren't attracted to your skill. They're attracted to your personality. Thank you so much for listening. Life doesn't always come with directions. Sometimes you have to jump, pivot, and roll. If you've enjoyed today's podcast, please subscribe, share it out, and leave us your thoughts. Until next time, thanks for listening.
Thanks, guys.